Welcome to Men Unfiltered, a podcast that looks at men today, addressing what's changed, what needs to be restored, and modeling the God-ordained role of man himself. His responsibility as provider and protector, leader and lover. This show sets out to destroy the current narrative that has an apparent mission to emasculate men and purposefully restore them in an empowered position by addressing accountability for their own health, money stewardship, and commitment to leaving a legacy. Unashamedly, here are Men Unfiltered.
Well, good evening on this 16th day of January 2023. It is the observed birthday of the man who had a dream, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Teresa said that. I'm saying that to all you guys. And I hope that this was a reflection day for some people. I think it's now become just so perfunctory that it's just a day to say that we honor him. But you know, whether it isn't, it is that day. It's a national holiday. It was a long time that it wasn't. And I think when we look at the show tonight, it has a little bit to do with that whole mindset he had. But before I do that, is this thing on? He's checking his camera. Before I do that, the podcast crew is in the house, Men Unfiltered. So in the captain's seat tonight is on the top left.
On the Chris Allen on the grind coach, man. Why you always got me in this top left up at the top?
You jump in there, bro. It's based off when you come in.
I'm on time because I was the first one in. Is that what
no, you came in at 7 o'clock. The show was 7:30. So
I was ready.
7 o'clock. You're gonna be
I was ready.
That's so you run it.
Chris Allen on the grind coach. Man, it's an absolute pleasure to be back on the show this week.
And my man at the bottom holding it down is
Dr. Adrian Ophir, the 8th Gentry. Let's go. Let's go.
So, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream that folks would be together, folks would be in harmony, folks would be loving on, living together in unity. And I think that whole mindset was to alleviate negativity, stress, and drama. But I do believe that, and we're going to talk about tonight, for the black male in America today, what is their mental state? Is what he did and who he shared this with, was it beneficial to beginning the change of the black male in America today? We often talk about society and new relationships, and I think going in 2023, we're going to touch on some different things, maybe a little bit deeper than normal, a little bit more impacting maybe, but I've got a couple videos here that I'll share in just a minute as it relates to that. But what said you guys about the state of black? What do you think, Chris, is the mental state of the black man in the world today? And again, let me preface it by people that are watching. We're using this to talk about a specific group, not to isolate another one, because there's probably the state that the white guy's in. But I think that we are literally looking at this being a simple differentiator for a couple reasons. I think it has a lot to do with stereotypes, a lot to do with history, and a lot to do with media messaging of today. So, Chris, what do you think the state of the black male is today in the world?
Well, I know we're going to jump into it, but, you know, my opinion from this show is I think that we are in a state of emergency when it comes to dealing with the black man. I think there's a lot of mental health issues that have been gone undiagnosed, misdiagnosed. One meaning that we don't go to the doctor to find out what's going on with us mentally. So it's undiagnosed, and then misdiagnosed is they put folk on these medications thinking it's one thing when I believe it's something really different. So I think that the state of emergency is for us to really find out and go deep on what's going on with us psychologically.
Is that only black men? Or is it more prevalent or more relevant with black men?
Well, I think in our community, I think it's more prevalent that we don't go get help because we don't want to get diagnosed as crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's just not something that we do in our particular community. I think when you look at the mental health, who goes, we are under the guidelines. We are under the percentages of actual folk who actually go and seek help. We'll just go to our homeboy and we'll go to our girls, and they be like, "Nah, you all right? You've always been crazy." You know what I'm saying? So we chalk it up. So I think that we just go undiagnosed.
Okay. What about you, Doc?
I think as regards to who we are as a culture, I believe we're completely confused still to this day, right?
Speak up, Doc. Speak up.
I think we're completely confused to this day, right? I think it's not just having to do with the fact, we've been displaced. We've had to take on rules and regulations and things that we haven't necessarily created. So we're still trying to figure ourselves out.
Sure.
And I find ourselves getting caught in blackism so much, right? Holding on to everyone else's belief systems about what we should be, who we should be in this world, and how we should act. And I was thinking about Real Cool. I can't think who wrote it. Book called Real Cool, Black Men and Masculinity. And she kind of talks about, inside of that book, she talked about how Black men's mental health issues stem from the fact of us not having an identity and having to work inside of these Black roles, right? Mm-hmm. And trying to conform to society while still trying to have Black masculinity. And I think that's a big burden on us to feel like you do not fit in majority of spaces, right? When you're walking into certain rooms, you're feeling like you do not fit. When you're trying to conform to certain behaviors or belief systems that not necessarily have been taught to you, you feel like you do not belong. And it creates an insecurity inside of us. And we talk about it all the time. Past that insecurity, we're holding this stuff in.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So creating that mental health dilemma that all of us have. We die a silent death. Mm-hmm. We're always trying to figure out who we are and where our place is in society. And now we have been ostracized. You have men being women. You have women being men. It's so many different convoluted things out there. Men being emasculated. I mean, it plays out to now. It's what is our role in the society? What do we do? Who are we? Who should we be believing?
I believe we've been. I think men in themselves have been reduced, but to Chris's point, I think that some of the residue that Black males have had to face, the extraditing them from the family in 1964 when they implemented welfare, was the beginning of, Doc, you were talking about them not having value anymore. You actually removed them and you began to devalue them for money. Correct. So you were trading their presence for finances. Mm-hmm. But then you want to get on them for not paying. You want to get on them for not being around. Well, you actually created a system that wanted them removed.
Right.
And so the remaining parts of where this is have a lot to do with all of that. Now, let me I want to play this for y'all. I couldn't get the video to load, but the sound is good enough. So for all y'all to listen, I want y'all to listen to this commentary and tell me how does it, because this is directly affecting or directly depicts some of the mental issues that are faced.
80% of Black males who are in jail come from single mother homes. So don't sit here and preach to me how y'all do such a great job of
So where's the father?
Listen to what
Where's
you're saying.
the man in the household?
Okay,
where did you go?
I can explain that. Let me explain that, please. Here's a simple answer to that. See, I own a house. In that house, if you were my wife, and I kept inviting dudes over, and they kept walking in with dirt on their shoes, and they kept throwing popcorn and shit on the ground and fucking it up. When they left, who would you blame? Me or them?
A combination of both.
No,
specifically
here, yes. Why?
Because
it's my house. See, let me explain something to you. When women have babies, I ain't never seen a man die in a delivery room. Women do, though. So, one, they can decide to end the pregnancy. That's right. He can unilaterally. Yes, they can't. He can't. The men can't. The women can decide to give a baby up at a gas station, at a firehouse, so they can do all these things. So if women are so damn smart, how come they're the only motherfuckers that's constantly getting conned and lied to get in the situation they like y'all claim y'all are smart as men, but y'all the only people who say, oh, he told me to do this and he talked me into this. When a man gets screwed over, they say it's your fault. You should have seen it coming. So why is it we can't say to these women? Because let me tell you a stat that should shock you, all of you. Did you know there are 2 times as many Black women with children than Black men? Damn. What does that tell you? Well, I'm going to interpret that for you. Okay. It tells you that women are fucking the same man. Oh, damn. So y'all know he ain't shit, and you fuck him because you in competition with that other ain't shit bitch to have that ain't shit nigga baby. Because you just saw a video on Instagram of Future, who you know got 9-11 kids, talking about how hard it is for him on Valentine's Day with all these bitches, and bitches jump right on the video to be there with him. So don't tell me how great women are. Don't tell me how women care about marriage. Don't tell me how women care about society, because if they did, the last thing you do is continue to reproduce with somebody you know has shown he is not a father, but you do it because you want to. Now, I'm Panamanian, so it's a little bit different because we speak a little bit honest. We talk honest about it. I know y'all Americans have been led by so many women that y'all sit there and believe that a lie is the truth. Yeah, and it feels real good to live in ignorance is bliss, and what I don't know can't hurt me. But if I don't know a woman got AIDS, I can catch it. It can't hurt me. If I don't know the brakes don't work in this car before I crank it up and drive it, I can die. So stop living like that, and let me tell you something, young lady. When you wonder why you have a man that is not there, it's simply because you didn't allow that man to be your husband before you allow that man to knock you up. Is that not a good enough answer, man? Gotcha, bitch.
It's a 10% of women.
I'm subscribed to Tommy's channel.
Now
80%.
he's got an interesting way of delivering. But the commentary was the commentary. What are y'all thoughts on that? Because what he's talking about is literally where the black man is and what he faces and what he's up against. And I mean, literally, the comment about, I think he said Future, the comment about him is, here are good guys out here that are wanting to be in the right place, but women are running to dudes that they know, according to him, ain't shit, and they'd rather be there. So again, we're talking about how does a man, and we'll use black man in this category and this time, really fit in because of the, as you said, Chris said earlier, misinformation, misunderstanding. I want y'all to comment on that.
My comments is, this is me personally, I don't know if that recording depicts what this show is really talking about. I think that's a whole nother show.
Completely different topic. For me.
Okay.
I think that talks to a different subject when it deals with us, how we deal with each other as far as in the black community, as far as male, female, and what we're looking for and what we're not looking for. But I think tonight's show really just goes back to what got us black men to this state of being where we feel like the world is on our freaking shoulder, and we don't know how to get from underneath it.
You don't. That doesn't depict that. Even though the context may be about relationships, we're talking about the state of the mind of the black male. You don't think that situation affects the state of mind?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it plays a role.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that plays a small role in the state of the black man in mental health. But as far as that being the overall picture of it, I don't really think it is. I think we have so many other things that bear on top of us, especially as a man. I think we look at a common day. We look at finance. We look at the amount of pressures that we take on outside of the house. We look at the amount of people who want to overthrow or deal with us in a way because of their egos or their insecurities. And we look at how women will tear us down. Like, I think all of the financial pressures that a man has. I think that really.
I'm more concerned with, making sure that my hands is on the right side of the steering wheel and that I don't escalate my voice because I'm upset. I'm more concerned with that than I am dealing with a woman because she chooses to choose multiple men in my community. I'm more concerned with why I got to go to work, and I got two different voices when I go to work. I got one when I talk to my homeboys, and then I got one when I talk to the white guy who comes in saying good morning to me. I'm more concerned with that.
Right.
It's from a mental standpoint?
From a mental standpoint.
That's explain that.
Because I feel we code switch. I feel mentally that's a pressure on me more so than dealing with this woman who might have multiple guys and choose to be with whoever she choosing to be with. For me.
I think if we go back and even look at books, if we look at the miseducation of the Negro, if we look at the Black Bourgeois, if we look at Cody's book, Tiny Cody's, all of them talked about how we were in a world that necessarily wasn't for us, and we were trying to fit into this world, and were losing the battle because what we thought should be done shouldn't necessarily. What we thought should be done wasn't working for us, but it was working for them, and that put us in a frustrated state. If I look at James Baldwin, the mental state of the Black man in that book, it was more so about introspection and understanding who we were, because we did not know who we were, being displaced from a country that we never wanted to go away from, and now having to recreate who we are inside of this country. Right. So I think the mental state of a Black man has less to do with how women sleep with certain men and don't sleep with other men. I think it has to do with misidentity.
There you go.
Good
word, Ed.
Right, how we fit into society.
Right, but I believe what's attributed to misidentity is the situation that he's talking about.
How?
The fact that women are growing, boys are growing up without fathers in the home. I believe that directly affects more Black men than anything. Not having a Black male figure in the house is a real issue. So to me, that was depicting that situation. Why are so many? His first statement was, and I don't necessarily say I'm talking about for content. His first statement was 80% of Black males that are incarcerated come from houses where there's no father. So to me, if that doesn't affect the psychology of a Black male, it has got to. That to me is the beginning, the genesis of, as Doc said, not knowing who you are, not identifying who you are. You talked about it, Chris, having two minds. I got to be this way here and this way there. I believe the progenitor of that is the fact that there's no father in the house. So the reason that commentary to me was addressing things on this show was the fact that my maleness, who I am as a male, is directly related to a father figure having to follow. So if the father's not there, that has to contribute to the psychology of a man, to the emasculation of a man. All that is a part of it. I'm not saying that we're talking about relationships. We're talking about the mental state of the Black man. And if that's not a contributor to it, then I'm missing it.
No, and I think you're absolutely right as far as that goes, that portion.
Right, and that's all I was using it for.
Right. We probably should cut it off.
I don't think that came through on that message.
Yeah, it didn't come through because more of what we were watching had to do with women having multiple babies by multiple men, more so than the 80% of household people in prison are by single family households. Sure. And I think, yes, it's absolutely true. But even in that stage, it's still a problem because we've been trained to condition to operate a certain way, even when in a household. Sure. So now on one side, you have a man that even if a man is in present, so now you have to worry about the other part. Now, is he too aggressive? Does he understand balance in this household? Because guess what? Grandfather, grandmother, granddaddy beat daddy beat son. You know what I mean? Like, and at that point, now we're dealing with anger issues. Now we're dealing with frustration issues. And that's why I say going back to looking at how we were communicated to versus how, let's say, a white child was communicated to in slave days was completely different, right? They weren't tearing down, abusing, and battering their children. They were doing that to us. So many of our Black ancestors took on that same communication style in trying to rear our children. What created the problem from the beginning, right? So we believe leadership means to be dominant and to tear down individuals, right? Only creating more voids between us and other people. And I'll say it a million times over. The biggest problem that we have in the African-American community today, and people don't want to admit it, people won't understand it, the reason we can't do business together is one reason, one word: insecurity. And I think that being one of the greatest factors that plague the Black community as a whole, especially when it comes to men, is insecurity.
Right. And what do you think that insecurity came from?
Well, the insecurity was bred into us. Absolutely. 100%. Right. But at the same time, I can't keep holding my captive. I can't keep holding him. I can't keep saying my captive was wrong if I'm not trying to change anything.
If you ain't going to try to change it. Right.
And that's where we're stuck at, right? Because a counselor, a psychiatrist, a therapist, all of these things are something we don't want to even address in the Black community.
Right.
When I'm looking at the Tuskegee projects. Hell no, I don't want to see no doctors.
Right. The reason why I don't want you to put that thing in me because y'all did it before,
Correct,
and it didn't turn out well.
Correct.
Yeah, but you know what?
Most of us have for doctors.
But here's the deal. But so many of them did. So many of them did do exactly what that project said. So why is that the case? I believe it is a problem of really understanding where you are. And when I heard that clip, it resonated with me in the simple way that we don't get to the root of the problem. We always want to band-aid stuff and don't ever want to talk about the root of the problem. So at the end of the day, the root of the problem is the genesis of where it came from. Yes, it was infiltrated into us. It was taught to us. Here's the real reality of the mental state. Is the mental state of men today by choice? Because the reality of it is that if we're still here, are we choosing to be here? Have we aligned ourselves with this mentality that says this is where we're going to be? Or has it been a resolution to shift it and change?
Well,
Because
I think that goes back to the statistic when it talks about how, we are the ones who don't go get diagnosed. So therefore, there's a undiagnosis going on because we don't seek the help. We just deal with it on our own. We'll just act like things is going to get better. We'll just go to church and we'll just pray that thing through. Right.
But my point is this, Chris. We don't think there's a problem. Why? Because it has been this way. See, so my point is this. That's what I was saying. It got this way because of things that were done that we refuse to address, so they carry over. So let's look at the mental state of the black man. Is wearing your pants down something should be, but that's the mental state of where they are. They've accepted a culture identity that does not define who they are. It defines some sort of inclusion that is different from them getting. So there's no way I can get help if I want to be included in the issue and situation. So we got to ask ourselves, is the mental state of where we are today by choosing, or is it trained default that we don't seem to want to escape?
I think it's trained default.
Correct. I don't think it's necessarily a factor that we do not want to escape.
Right.
If I've never been conditioned, if I've never been taught, if I've never been trained on what to do when I'm dealing with a certain issue, right? And I think that's the grave difference. Think about it growing up as a child, right? If you hurt something, it was shut up, walk it off.
Right.
Right. If you were emotional at any level, it was
not going to work out well for you.
Right. It's not going to happen. Right. So we were never even introduced to a counselor. So our default is never to go to a counselor. Right. That's not how we operate. It was never about communication when I was growing up. It was about shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Right. There was no emotion that was able to be projected at any adult at all besides happiness and you have to be respectful. That's it. So just imagine if I dealt with that. Chris, did you deal with that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like you couldn't yell at your parents. You couldn't get the emotion out how you truly felt because guess what? You get your face smacked off. Coach,
right.
Right. So let's just think about that. If us three completely different areas of the country, we've grown up with the same type of mentality, our default has nothing to do with let me get help because this is normal to us. Right. And as a culture. Now, as you get older, you start to realize that a lot of this
that was bad information.
That wasn't necessarily what we needed to be doing.
Right.
But it's what has transitioned throughout the entire culture as a whole. Now, do we want to stay there? I don't believe most people even know there's a problem there.
There you go.
Well, hold on, Doc. So let me ask you this. Harriet Tubman had the Underground Railroad. Mm-hmm. She came to the other side, got free, and came back. Her family didn't want to leave. Correct. They chose not to leave, even though they saw it. So my point is that if you see healing,
but hold on 1 second though. 1 second, Doc. I mean, Grace. But remember now what the quote was that she said. What did Harriet? If you finish that up, she said, according to the quote, is they didn't even know that it was a slave. They did not even know that they was a slave. So that goes back to Adrian's point. So we don't even know that we even have the problem.
Well, here's the deal, Chris. So we're bringing the message to them that they have the problem,
right?
Just like she did. Okay. So if Adrian is said, you know what, hey, I go to a counselor. He's sharing with people that I've done that. They still don't want to go. It's not as if, and again, both sides contribute. My point is this though, is that if I literally come and tell you
Right.
about how to change it. Let's take real estate.
But hold on 1 second. But we got to make, I think, shows like this, and I love the platform because we have to let it be known that it's okay to go seek the help. And then also the second piece of that, what does mental health issues even look like? What is it when you look at mental health? Because all three of us can sit on the phone right now and we probably say, do we got mental health? I'm in front of, I probably need to sit on somebody's couch. I'm probably do, because it'd be some thoughts going in my head. I'm like, where the hell that came from? You know what I'm saying?
And to some, that's normal. That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't even know to what degree we need to go. Okay, if I'm thinking about killing myself, that may be a point in time I need to go, right? But me, frustrated, angry, stressed out, right? Ruminating all the things that are going on in my life. This is normal life. That's what I've been told. Suck it up and keep it moving.
There you go.
So I don't even know at what degree I need to go.
There you go.
Right. So there's a lot of education surrounding it. I can tell you all day long that I do a counselor. It's okay to go see a counselor. That I have no problem with it at all. But I had to get to a point in myself and say, you know what? I need help right here. Right? Like, I have to be able to talk this out with someone other than what's going on inside of my head. That's me. But now we have an entire group of people who have never had that type of understanding, that type of training. Everything that they're going through is okay.
Right.
Right. It's okay.
I don't think it's okay. I think it's what they know. But Chris, just like Chris said, you need to go sit on somebody's couch. Chris, what are you going to find out on the couch? You're going to find out you're going to research mentally to figure out what the problem is.
There you go.
So here's the deal. Here's the deal. If we're giving the problem to people, if we're telling them what the problem is, if we're helping them, the problem
with that narrative, though, Grayson, is you don't know what my problem is. Like, I don't know what your problem is. So you don't know the person what their problem is.
But hold on. So when you get on the couch,
right,
you're going to find out something.
There you go.
Okay. So the reality of it is that once you're aware of it, are you going to change it?
There you go.
How do I change?
Know that.
What? Wait, how do I change?
How do you change? There's the process, right?
But there is a process. It's a choice. Just like anything else, when you talk about where it is today, it either becomes an excuse or a meaningful reason to. It's a choice. So nobody knows how to actually do it. Right. Somebody has to begin to do it. And if we're going to sit here and talk about processes, then it's about process. If we're going to talk about that, if not, then we're going to be structured on someone else telling you how to fix your problem.
I think all of us at some point give guidance. I think we operate sometimes.
I totally agree.
I think we operate in the place of knowledge sometimes. If we're sitting here and we're saying, look, a person needs to change, they need to do this, this, and this. I think many times that we operate in this place of it's called the curse of knowledge, right? We understand that there has to take some things that have to take place. However, I was thinking about it one day. Okay, NFL player been poor, broke their whole entire life, right? Straight out the hood. And you give this joker $1 million. And then the first thing he goes to do is go buy $700,000, $800,000 worth of clothes and cars and houses and everything else. And the first thing that people always love to say is, oh, that was stupid.
Yeah.
Well, how was it stupid?
Right.
Because he's been broke his entire life. He has no understanding of what finance looks like. He has no idea of what taxes really are because he never really paid taxes. He played football his whole life. And then all of a sudden we begin to badger them or talk about them because of the decisions that they're making. They don't understand. Now, year 3, 4, 5, someone might jump in the picture and say, hey, let me move you over here a little bit, right? Like, you need to do this. And I think we have to get to that place as a Black community. I think going back and looking at, and I'll say this a million times, as militant as they may have been, the Black Panthers had it right? They had it right because the way they set up their economy, the way they were setting up their systems was truly to train people in the individual things that they needed to learn to succeed in life. Now, they had a militant style. We're going to kill you over here if you come over here talking crazy. But it was a process, a step to make that community economically, socially feasible. And I think that's where we really have to get to in the Black community. I hate these events with black this and black that and what we're going to do as a Black culture because all we're still talking about is what happened during slavery times and what we need to be doing. But it's never solution oriented and it pisses me off. Which
is my point is if the choice to do something different is going to be on us. Ultimately, you talk about those athletes. If an athlete in 2023 is given the money that they're given, is it not onus on him to maybe look back over the last 20 years and find out what financial issues folks have had? Or is it always an excuse that I just didn't know?
But and you're completely right, and I think it's a part of both. Right? You're still talking about a default.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You're still talking about the default of let me figure out. If that's my default and no one's ever showed me that,
right?
That's never going to be the first thing that I do.
Correct. Yeah. So how did I get to my default? It was put in. So here's my point. The state of where we are we going to always say that it's how I was raised? Or does there come a point of accountability when it comes to it? That's my whole point. Talk about the state. Huh?
Yes, accountability.
I think there should be some self-accountability.
There you go.
I also believe, and I go back to Coach Rudy, I still look at Coach Rudy to this day, one of the most intelligent black men I've ever known, right? Like Coach Rudy, my football coach, when I would go into his house, and anytime he told me something, he set me down at a table. He went to his bookshelves. He put 2 or 3 books on the table. He opened them up. He went into the pages, and he showed me what he was talking about in each book. That became my default. When my mother bought me those encyclopedias for the first time, and anytime I would ask a question, I'd almost want to choke myself out because the first thing she said is, go get the encyclopedias.
Britannica World Book.
Huh?
Compton's Britannica World Book.
Look, that was her thing. We only had one bookshelf in the house, and all it carried was those encyclopedias that I hated. But my default became when I didn't know something, the first thing I do is go look for information.
Right.
There's so many people today, that's not their default.
Not their default.
And it has to be trained in certain ways to have them understand that. What Coach Rudy did for me, what my mother did with me was invaluable. Right. But I see so many people that I grow up with that didn't have that exact same exposure. So guess what? They're going through this thing trying to figure everything out in their head because that's what they see mommy do. That's what they see daddy do. Man, not supposed to ask for help. First of all, you're weak. Right. So I'm still trying to figure this thing out myself. But my default is never to go out and seek help.
Right.
So the question
is about this though. Like we'll go to the doctor for anything. Like if you and I sit up right now and my tooth start hurting or your head start hurting or your eyes start twitching, the first thing we're gonna say to each other is, man, you need to go check that out. Right? I know it's hurting. I know my tooth is hurting, my head is hurting, my eyes twitching, but it's when you go to that doctor so we can diagnose what's actually going on to even put you on a track to even get better. We don't even want to go get diagnosed. We don't even want to go and see. Hey man, why I'm quick tempered? Hey man, why I feel like I'm finna jump off this bridge? Hey man, why I'm taking this out on my wife at night? What's going on?
But this is environmental. If it's something I've seen, it's normal.
That's what I'm saying. That's my whole point. That's why.
Yes.
But that's why I shared what I did with him, because in my mind, what he was talking about was the creation of the environment. And I think if we're going to talk about the mental state of the black man, if you ignore the origin or the state of the environment, you can't move to a place where you have some resolution. It can't be done. Here's what I believe. Like you said, Doc, here's the thing. What's been accepted as the norm is now accepted as feasible way to live my life. This is how I do it. I sag my pants. You're wrong for not sagging yours. You're in the minority because everybody out here is doing it, right? So the state of the black man has everything to do with the individualized lack of thinking for themselves without another option. Now, even when they get another option, Doc, we've been in the prisons with these jokers. We do this on every Friday. We in there giving them another example. We giving them another mindset, intentionally having a different conversation. And it doesn't change the environment. So the question remains, is the mindset something that they even want to absolve? Or have we created, and Teresa talks about this, is if I'm watching TV, I believe that the creation of a narrative has been made so appealing that what is in controversy to that looks crazy. We look crazy because we wear our pants up. We look crazy because we wear suits. Why? Because now the norm is what has been the detractor in maleism in the world today. That's what I mean, Chris. It's like when we're talking about how can we recognize the problem, it doesn't look like there is one. So if everybody is on point with on page, look, you see 50-year-old men sagging. Grown men are wearing their pants hanging down. Are you kidding me right now?
Right. But I think
That's what that is. So again, what we're talking about, Chris, and what I mean, and what I was saying was the state of the black man isn't, in my opinion, right now, about healing. It's about fitting in. How can a 50-year-old man want to sag?
Right, because it's a confusion of what black masculinity looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a confusion of what black masculinity truthfully looks like. And it creates an environment of toxicity, which in turn confuses the heck out of us, right? Who should we really be? Why should we be like this? Instead of identifying, and we can't really, that's what I said, we can't even identify people who we should be being mentored by.
Exactly.
We can't identify that anymore. It's not in, if I'm looking at Reverend Jesse Jackson and I'm looking at like, wait, what's going on? This is our leaders in this community, right? We can't identify them now, right? Because Reverend, what's that? Your boy Jackson, he taking selfies too in the mirror with his shirt off. So I mean, I don't. At this point, we don't know who is what and what.
We don't know who we are.
Exactly, we don't. And I think that's the part that's killed us the most. Every time we go in and sit down and talk to those guys inside of the detention homes, one of the first things we want to do is help them identify the mindset, right?
Fact.
Why do you think the way you think? That's the one thing we do in every cycle of new boys coming inside of there, helping them identify the mindset. What are you thinking? Does this make sense to you at all?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just doing things are you just doing things because someone else is doing it? And it never fails. The first time we ever talked to them, all of them realize at that moment, not all of them catch on, but they realize there's something flawed inside of their thinking process.
Mm-hmm.
It happens every cycle that we go through and talk to these boys. The second thing we try to get them to understand is how to begin to rethink.
Right.
Like rethinking all the things that they think they should have known, right? And then building them up to a place where they understand exactly who they are. Why? Who are you? I want you to define yourself, because we have to edge out those things that are causing the mental health issues. We have to edge out those things that are causing the hurt. We have to edge out those things that are causing the pain and truly identify who you are. And when going through that process, it's crazy. When we first got in, them boys was like the terror dome.
Exactly.
Right. And I have to mention, first of all, it's majority black, guys. Like it's not ifs, ands, and buts about it. Majority of the kids, boys inside of these homes are black every time we step into a new cycle. And the funny part about it is they had never heard this type of information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you know, what's even more ironic is the fact that the influence of culture, even the kids that weren't of color acted like the ones of color.
Correct.
So the influence that's had, that's what I mean, Chris, when we're talking about the state of the black, it's really hard to really get to a place because the influence is so great that the ones that have a different mindset, we look crazy. So they can't even have a role model that says, well, he's doing the right thing, because their role models reflect the new narrative that they've embraced. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the mental state of them, it is directly related to the same formula. I'm following who I have respect for. I'm following who's most available to me. I'm following who I see the most. I'm following the representation of what money looks like. What success
or what manhood looks like.
Correct. Yeah. So if I'm looking at the state, that's why I said when we talk about the state of the black male, is it a choice, or are they just victims the same way as they were in times of slavery and depression?
I think the longer you stay in an environment, no matter what you do, it's going to create something in you, right? It's going to impose more on you than you most likely are going to impose on it. And I think that's where it hurts the most, even when we go into these detention homes with these boys. It's just that these kids are amazing, man. Like when I tell you, these kids are amazing.
Yeah.
The amount of intelligence they have, the amount of pain they shed, the amount of tears, and not tears in a way that we're going to talk about them. They know they're a safe space, right? Even with the boys there, they know it's a safe space. Look, we cry in this one, we all right. We can't do it like at mess hall, like when we go eat, but we can do it right here in this space. And them boys break down. But you realize in that environment, they're amazing. They're thinking, right? Yeah. They're planning. They're doing everything that we tell them to do. Like this is your homework for the week. They're coming back and they're bringing the homework. And then unfortunately, they have to step back into their environment.
Correct.
And I look at Caesar. Right? Young boy, north side. And Caesar was doing everything right. Got baptized while he was in there. He did everything as far as work goes. He read every book he can get his hands on. He wanted to change. He had a plan and stepped back in the environment. And a year later, we get a call.
He did.
Caesar dead.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time he's been shot in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go back and we're looking at his page and his guns over here, guns over there. It's the same kid
Exactly.
that had so much. He wanted life, right? Like he wanted something different.
Mm-hmm.
But if I step into a community of people who all have the same ideas, the same theories, and the same concepts, I'm gonna find myself like that.
Right.
And I think that's what we're really not understanding as a community until we begin to heal individually, and then we can heal other people. Right? We can begin to have effect on someone else, because my influence right now, I had someone the other day meet me. I've never said this person, like, you know what, you're inspiration to me, man. I've been doing this, and this. And I was like, I didn't know. I don't even know you, bro. Like, but I'm so happy that I can be that to you.
Right.
But I think that's where we have to really begin. And we all have to have a voice. It can't be silent. It can't be one of those things that we only do in small groups of men. We need to pull other men in and begin to have that conversation.
But I agree with you, Abe. You know, I think throughout history, the voice was silent. You know, even during the slavery times, you know, they had two types of Negroes. You had a field Negro and you had a house Negro. The house Negro was the one who was able to adapt inside that community. He was the one who figured out, don't raise your voice too loud. Don't disrespect. Two types, right? I think even to this day, I think some folk have learned just to be in the house. You know what I'm saying? There's issues that's going on around us that I don't think that we necessarily speak out against. And I think other communities have that ability where they're able to speak out and don't fear fearful for their life. Like when you talk about George Floyd, like there was black folk standing around scared. Why? I tell you why. Because they don't want to be the threat. Because at any moment, while you seeing this other human being die, you're afraid that officer is going to turn around and now you're the threat. And then we're going to wash it right underneath the boardwalk like, oh, I fear for my life. That's why I shot him 17 times.
Are you afraid, Chris? Do you walk out every day afraid?
I think there's a sense. There's a sense of, if an officer pull you up, are you really going, what type of voice are we going to use?
Well, the question is, no. Why is that an issue? What voice you use? Which one would you use? Which voice do you have? So you have multiple voices?
Yeah, I think I use a white voice and we have a black. You got one too, Gray. There's a black voice and a white voice we use.
No. There may be a dialect, but there's no voice.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. No. When you're talking to your homeboys, it's a different dialect than when you're talking to the president of a company.
Chris, that's no different if I went to France. I'd be speaking French. If I went to Spain, I'd be speaking Spanish. I'm speaking the language.
Right.
So here's the deal. When you're dealing with authority, how do you speak?
Well, it depends. Listen, do you think that they think that same way?
Well, but I'm asking you.
That's what I'm talking about. Do you think other cultures think that same way?
Here's what I believe they think that way because of a narrative that's been put there.
What's the narrative?
The narrative is that all police are bad.
So you think when the police officer come up to Karen and ask Karen what she doing, you think Karen gonna buck down and be like, or do you think Karen gonna say exactly what she want to say?
But again, that's Karen's choice. I'm asking you, when you get pulled over, how is Chris Allen gonna act?
I'm going, yes, sir. Yes, officer. Yes.
They should go home.
Thank you.
So does that devalue? So are you reducing yourself as a black male?
I'm gonna speak something different because I'm trying to go home because I don't want to be a statistic in your book. I don't want you to feel like you was threatful, that you felt threatened because I got angry at the wheel because you pulled me over knowing that I wasn't speeding. So my voice is not going to escalate. Like me and you, we have an escalation. My voice not going to escalate with them. And yours not either.
But why would it?
Exactly. That's my point. Do you think other cultures think that same way?
So you think there's a time to just yell at folk?
No. Do you?
Because Dr. Martin Luther King said the exact opposite.
We talking. What am I next say?
No, we're talking about. I'm saying you're saying that. Is there a time for you to be bold and just yell at folk?
No. What the conversation is talking about the traumas that I feel. Right. Yours may be something completely different. So when we're talking about, do I think that there's two types of ways that we deal with when we're dealing with other cultures? Absolutely, as opposed to one way that we deal within our own culture. And I don't think that other cultures have that same type of scenario when they're trying to process.
Fair enough. But you're a man of faith, correct?
Yes.
What does your Bible say?
What do you mean? This says
What
a
does
lie.
your Bible
Christ
say
has, no,
about?
Christ has no respect of man.
Correct. So what does your Bible say? See, here's the deal. What we get
So
in this, hold on, Chris. What we get in this energy right here is again the problem that's out there. It's a social difference. Your word says that you're supposed to act a certain way. It says be slow to anger. That's what your word says.
Right.
Your word says that you are to speak with a soft tongue, a soft whisper turneth away wrath. That's what your word says. So what we're really talking about is the state of the absence of the foundation of what our true belief system is. And we remove that because we feel offended. So it bears reason of what Doc said. There's an insecurity because if I'm a true believer of God's word, then I don't act that way.
And the reality is we walk in those insecurities. Everyone has insecurities. I always like to tell people, anytime I talk about insecurities, I want to tell people this. Everyone has insecurities, but do the insecurities run your life?
There you go.
I think as a culture, we allow it to run our lives.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
We allow, if anything, if a white cop pull us over, had to pull us over because they was racist. If we go into a restaurant, we see a whole bunch of white people, guess what? All of a sudden, yeah, I felt racist vibes. No, you felt insecure because you were walking into a room full of white people. And I think when we start to truly work on that part of ourselves, many times it escalates because you feeling like you have this own idea that they're doing this for a certain reason. It may not even be that reason. I'm telling you like this: I don't like to be pulled over. I don't like to talk to police. That's because
why not?
That's because of my past. But this is also
according to Grace, that can't be.
No, I think I don't care. That plays a role with Adrian. It plays a role, but the current reality is I've never gotten in trouble or went to jail over anything that it wasn't my fault for. Mm-hmm. So I have a very leveled idea of what the police officer is there for, right? And so anytime they pull up, I'm going to ask the question. I've only been pulled over once, and it had to do with me being black. But it was on 103rd. Expect that. Whole street smell like weed. You got to get pulled over. You're black. But I've only had that happen once, and even in that communication with that officer, they were wrong and let me go. They felt wrong. You can see the disappointment in their face. I never raised my voice one time, but I communicated with the officer in a way that he ended up having to feel bad about what he did, and it's like, you know what, go ahead and go. Right? Like, you have to really understand who you are in this process of life. And when you're walking into new relationships, when you're walking into new businesses, I think when I lost that whole idea that I had to shape shift, when I walked into a room or how I spoke, I believe my confidence level went up 10 by 10. And the pressures of who I was as a black man began to level out. I remember getting on the phone with the mortgage company. I remember black chick once said, she was like, "Are you black?" And I was like, wow, like I really changed my voice up that much. She's like, yeah, because I'm black and people think I'm white. And that really made me feel some type of way. Even though I've been taught this, right? And not long after that, I read The Miseducation of the Negro. I went to page 54 and they talked about how we'll do these things and no one even told us to do it. But we're trying to fit into a world that we believe isn't ours. What if we begin to change the idea? This world is ours. I fit wherever I walk in the door.
Right.
How do you think your business will excel?
It's a change in mindset.
Right. How do you think your business will excel? And you have to sit down sometimes. You have to talk this out with a counselor. I tell people that I don't care what nobody said. I believe in counselors. I believe in psychiatrists. I believe in therapists. I believe in talking whatever you have going on inside of your mind out with someone else, because the belief system is there for a reason, right? Some people, black, are intimidated by white people and don't even realize you're intimidated by them. So every time you get around them, you get anxious, especially us as men. Mm-hmm. Some of us have been trained to believe this thing. I call it the professional voice versus an everyday voice. Absolutely. But what is a professional voice?
What's the professional everyday voice?
White. We got to sound more white, not so intimidating.
But you know, we've been taught, you know, to kind of hold your thought. We've been taught, I know you have something to say, Grayson. We've been taught this from early childhood, though. What does your parents tell you? You got to be how many more times greater than? 4 times better. 4 times. You got to be 4 times better than them. Why? Why? Why do I have to be 4 times better? Because it's stacked against you. So you can't even leave a doubt in your mind. Right? You and I go for a job. I got to be 4 times better than them. Do you think other cultures teach their kids that?
No. They teach them how to operate.
Teach how to operate. Let your Lord speak for you. Go to school, get you a good A. Go to school and get A's. They're not trying to think about you. Well, you know you got to be 4 times better than a black guy. You got to be 4 times better than the white person. You got to be 4 times better. Yeah, I'm telling you that. But our culture tells us you got to be 4 times better.
What you said,
But-
Coach?
Go ahead, Coach.
You in deep thought?
Well, when you come down to it, I mean, at the end of the day, if I want to have an opportunity in something I don't control, until I control it, I have to play the game.
There you go. Okay.
So the reality of it
I
is,
agree.
as a basketball player, if I don't think I should have to dribble, I can pick the ball up and run all the way down court all day long.
It doesn't
They're
necessarily.
gonna keep blowing a damn whistle, and they're gonna you
Let it
walking.
fit.
So I can't. So unless I learn to play the game with the rules that were established by the game itself, then I do either play or I don't play. That's what it comes down to. So when you look at society, fair or unfair, those are the rules. You can change the rules when you have the authority to do so. And you can personally do that in your life. When you don't feel like you have the opportunity to change rules, then you're going to be subject to it. If I get pulled over by a cop right now, I don't give a darn. I ain't got no warrant. I'm not going to act like no ass, and I'm not going to act like no idiot. At the end of the day, you pull me over, you feel like you're doing your job. What'd you pull me over for? Thought you're speeding. Okay, fine. I'm going to take it to court. I'm going to do what I need to do if I was in the wrong. But here's the reality. We get offended by an image. We get offended by a narrative that plays a role. Oh, this nigga going to kill me. Well, who said that? The narrative, the media. Because if you look statistically, it doesn't pan out. It doesn't number out if you look that way. But if I'm inundated by it, and that's all I see, Tony says you must speak up, be left behind. That's true. Speak up for yourself. You can't change the system. And I think we have this mindset, again, acquiesce and change the system for me so I don't have to change. I think one of the greatest opportunities we have is the recognition that we have to do something different. Because if I don't have to change, I'm going to be the same. One of the things I'm happy about is that it was tougher. I'm glad it was tougher because it made me that much better. It made me that much more efficient. I had to seek out education if I wanted to be that much better. I'm totally okay with that. When my mother said that to me as a young boy, you got to be better, I didn't ask why. I just did it. Because trying to figure out a system that was there before me, that's been in place before I got here, that I can't personally change myself. A mindset has to change it. So it is a mindset. And the mental state of the black male in the world today doesn't believe that unless they are a rapper, an actor, or an athlete.
We need to shut all that down.
Well, but that's that's the spaces where we excel.
Right.
That's the spaces where we see ourselves excelling. Even
Correct.
Even Kanye West, Mr.
I mean, that whole rap culture has just totally this.
The Jews are making the money, but you making the rap. But it's amazing to me. That's what we see as success.
Correct.
And like I say, even when you're saying we have to play the game to get to where we're going, how do we even identify that? And that's what I'm saying. We're creating
the same game.
We're creating the things we have to change, and that's become the problem.
Right.
The level of insecurity when we're walking into the door. Now that weighs on us. Mm-hmm. That weighs on you when you have to be someone completely different. I talk about this all the time. We talk about self-image, how you see yourself. So if you see yourself as weak when certain people are around, and you see yourself strong over here, and you see, like, if you have to continuously change who you are mentally as a person, you're going to have certain issues that you deal with. Right?
Exactly. And that's why let me ask you this. Do you feel like you have to change every day?
Oh, now? No.
Okay. What about you, Chris? Do you feel like you have to change every day? Why not? If it's what we face, then what have you done to make sure that you don't deal with that? What have you introduced into your life that you don't feel like you have to do that every day?
Changing my mindset every single day. Not trying to be changing the mindset every single day, understanding why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, and
but the game's still the same.
The game is still the same. And like you said, you can't change the game. The game is still the same. So now you just have to learn how to operate within inside that game. But I do believe that there's two types of rules that's being played inside that game as well.
That's unmistakably true. There's no two ways about it. But you know that.
Yes.
Here's the reality. You're aware of it. And it's executionable if you understand how to navigate it. Mm-hmm. I think Einstein said it like this. He says you can't fix the problem with the same mind that created it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're trying to do. The Bible talks about a double-minded man being unstable in all his ways.
Mm-hmm.
again, that's the two minds we got to put on. They're vacillating back and forth. The Bible says tossed to and fro by anyone the doctrine. That's the emotional place that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
But the true subjective matter of who you are as a person, the mental state of the black male, I believe, will change when there is a true belief about the true authority and power that you have as a male.
Right. And that's the hardest part.
Right.
I think that's forever been the hardest part inside of a black community. Right. When I look back to slavery and the slave owner used to rape the wife of the slave in front of him.
Right.
That takes all power away from you.
All power.
No
right?
doubt.
And then when we go, and then we fast forward to when the black man was taken out of the household, and now a woman don't need him. So the mind changed. The mindset is completely shifted. Even with women, I don't need this black man anymore. So guess what? We find a lot of women who are now more masculine than men are, right? Because that's what they've had to be. And I'm not saying all of them are that way because that's society. No, some of them had to be both the father and the mother. So of course you take on some of that personality type as well. But when we look at a black man not being able to truly be powerful in most situations, of course it's harmful to the community, right? And I think it's one of those things, like I said, it's individual. Do you want to change, right? And then once you figure out that you want to change, everything has to spread like a virus because it's not something that's openly taught inside of our communities. It's not something that most people understand inside of our communities. If you can't identify with those words, I am insecure, I have this problem, I need help. There's no way you can teach someone else how to overcome that. But most of us have seen that to be a weakness inside of our community, and we have to start building from that standpoint. That's why I say.
So, what suggestions do we give? Instead of watching now, watching later, what suggestions do we give to black men that are in a state of not knowing who they are? That are in a state of constant projection on the issues of society. What advice do we give them?
One, own your issue. 2, disconnect. Right? Like disconnect from social media for a minute.
This thing.
Right? Disconnect from what you're seeing on TV. Let's disconnect from popular media. Let's rap. I need you to disconnect because that's where you're going to begin to find yourself. And a lot of these things that you begin to think don't necessarily seem normal anymore. And when you begin to ruminate on all of these things that you've been thought, like all these things that you've thought, while putting extra information into your mind, you'll start realizing, just like I did, I was lied to. Right? I was lied to. I was lied to by my mother. I was lied to by my father. I was lied to by my grandparents. I've been lied to by all the people around me, and they didn't mean to lie to me. What they were doing was they were only giving me what they understood and what they knew. Right. I remember my uncle one time. I was on the phone with him, and I was like, all right, bye-bye, and hung up the phone. He called me back. No man should say bye-bye. Is that a rule? Like, where's this rule at? Right? Like, in no shape, form, or fashion, no man should say bye-bye. All right, bye-bye. I'll talk to you later. No man should say bye-bye. Now, think about this for a second. How many of those rules do you have in your life? Right. Now, there's no rule written that a man shouldn't say bye-bye on the phone. Right? In no shape, form, or fashion have I ever been gay. In no shape, form, or fashion have I ever looked like I was going to be gay. But I can't say that as a man. And I think how many of those things that you have in your life right now that are ruling you? And you have
Teresa said they were trying to save you.
Huh?
Teresa said they were trying to save you in their
way. Correct. Because how many of those things do we have in our head? You have to introduce new information, because after you begin to introduce new information, after blocking out all the nonsense that you're seeing on a regular basis, you'll start to really realize half of the stuff you're doing doesn't make sense. Now I can heal from that point. Now I can get the correct information. But if you're still stuck listening to the same stupid people you've been around 90% of your life, you're going to walk around with a toxic male energy, masculine energy, and it's going to create mental health issues in you.
Yeah, what advice would you give, Chris?
I would say go lay on somebody's couch. First step, just go lay on somebody's couch. Just go find out and seek and just talk some stuff out. There's some thoughts that you're dealing with. Don't wait until you feel like you're on the edge of the bridge about to jump off. All of a sudden, I need help. That's not the time. There's a whole bunch of other places. There's a whole bunch of other things that's been going on in your head that's been telling you need to go sit on somebody's couch. Don't be ashamed. It's okay to go talk this thing out.
So let me ask you this. if the issues of insecurity exist, and I already have a frustration or a built-in belief system about white America, am I going to get on? Do I have to get on the couch with a black psychologist?
First of all, I need that. I'm gonna tell you right now, all these hashtag black support black businesses. I'm gonna be honest with you. Adrian supports who has the best referral system, who has the best reviews.
Right.
I support who's best in business.
Right. Okay. So let me ask you this: if that's the case, and we're talking about that, Chris, I'm asking you: if you're gonna lay on somebody's couch,
sure,
can you get help as a black male if you're laying on the couch with someone white?
Yes, I think you can.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then the answers aren't really cultural. The answers are informational. Because if we're talking about understanding,
I was about to go there. The question: do I think that you could get help? Yes, I think that you could get help. I think that for me, I'm going to try to seek out the one who understands my culture and understands as I'm talking this thing out, what I'm trying to articulate or deal with, as opposed to someone's telling me, no, that's not true. There's no white supremacy. There's no white. It's all in your head. I need somebody who can kind of understand. Brother, this is what I'm going through, but I don't want that. I want that person to also have them degrees, them certifications. Just not going to just be some black business. I want you to understand and know what you're talking about. And if you can come with the whole culture background, that's what I'm going with.
And this is what I believe as well. Yes, you may have an understanding of my culture, so to speak, right? But at the same time, you may hold some of the same values as I hold. You're having some of the same problems that I'm having. It was, when I tell you, eye-opening, when me and Coach did that Bridging the Gap class with all nothing but white people, besides one more brother than us, Coach?
Yeah, there's one.
And the rest were white. And we started talking about these things. When I tell you, it started to release a whole bunch of belief systems and concepts and ideas and theories that you've never heard before.
I love it.
And our brain completely was spinning. Their brain was spinning. One man walked out crying, talking about he a bigot. Now I think he's like a black, the white dude, he's like a Black Panther now in his mind. Like he's all for black people, but I believe you need that balance of information.
Yeah, I agree. That's good.
Right? I need that balance of information, because what we've done in the black community is now we assimilate. And we continue to hold on to a lot of these values.
Right. So here's my last question. If you are on that couch, is your purpose on that couch to stay stuck?
No. That's what I said.
Because here's the deal. If you are, so how are you going to know if the person that you're talking to doesn't hold the same values you're trying to escape from?
Do I see change in my life? That's how I'm evaluated. When I get up from off this couch, do I feel worse than I did before? Or better? That's how I'm evaluated. It's like I went to a white doctor. I'm gonna feel like, do I feel better or worse than I did before I came in here?
Feel better about what?
Whatever I'm dealing with.
Okay, so my point is that if they let's say they identify with what you're going through, are they going to agree with you, or are they going to give you room to change?
How do I change it?
Huh?
How do I change these? How do I change these thoughts?
But what if their mindset is, yes, you're oppressed, and yes, there's an issue out there. Is that where you want to stay stuck?
Then you're gonna stay the same way. You're gonna stay in the same position.
Exactly. And that's my whole belief system. I have to identify with someone that necessarily does not have the bulljiggity that's going on in my mind. Right? If I'm going to a doctor I'm going to a doctor, and that doctor has been physically abused, and they hate men, right? Oh, matter of fact, I believe Coach, you dealt with this at some point, right? Like I remember you having a problem with a person, a counselor or something like that you were talking to that had the same belief systems. That it was crazy, right? Like you'll see right then that there's a bias, and the problem begins to occur with the bias that they're holding on to. So sometimes you have to find someone that's completely out of the realm of who you're talking to, of what you're believing, because you need to have new information.
Right. So what I was getting at is that you have to have an open mind to walk in that door. And that's why I asked you, were you going to be partial or bipartisan to who you went into? Because if I have a belief system about white America, then I'm not going to go near someone. I think, Doc, this plays into people's apprehension or aversion to going, because most of the psychologists, most of the psychiatrists are of not color. So the reality of it is, I don't want to go in there for help because I don't believe they're going to help me.
Well,
So we're talking about getting answers, but I think because of the preconceived mindset that we have about the cultural differences and here's what I believe about white America, then I don't want to go in there and get help from them. So when we see that that is the group of people opening the door for us to be helped or give help to, then I don't want to go in there. So it's not that I don't want to go in. It's not that that's not a good thing. It's my preconceived belief systems that say, I'm not going in that room. So all the ads I see are for people that don't look like me. Come get help, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's physical abuse, whether the epitome of those or the people that are getting quote unquote healed in those areas don't look like me. Right. So I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So
the sad part about that, once again, in our culture, we're going to hold them to a higher standard than we'll hold the white people to.
Facts.
Like that's the sad part. See, that's why I like to do business with black people.
Yeah.
So the mind, that's what I'm saying. Like the dynamic of our minds in Black America has been manipulated so much, right? That I want to say I want to buy black, but as soon as black messed up, I knew it. I should have never bought black. And then I don't want to mess with white because white don't understand me and they might be racist. So we're caught in this tunnel of it's only based off of what's in my mind and what I see as normal.
Correct.
Because we have been screwed up on both sides. We've been taught to mistrust the black person. We've been taught to mistrust the white person. Exactly. It's crazy.
Even the narrative, and this probably is another show, but even the narrative of why we even feel that we have to say it's a black business. Why do we even feel like we even have to say black excellence? Where do we get this notion that there's two? Where did we get the notion that there's two types of excellences? But
because of what you said, because of what's been talked about here, there is again, I've said this before, any adjective you put in front of anything carries more weight than the actual thing itself.
Right.
So when you have to say it, so what we've had is again, it's a way to insecurely identify who you are. That's what it comes down to. And it allows me to assimilate with people that carry that same emotional baggage, that same emotional hurt. When it comes down to it is society stereotypes. Because think about it. I think Martin Luther King Jr. said it. He said the most segregated time in America is 11 o'clock on Sunday. In the name of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You have us, Chris, we choose where we're going to worship based on who looks like us. When we say that God is no respecter of person, this is why I said Mark 7:13 in the Bible. That verse of scripture is one that changed and saved my life because it brought me perspective. And it says the tradition of man makes the word of God of none effect. Man's traditions, man's practices, man's systems, man's belief system make the word of God of none effect. Because just like you said, Chris, there should not be and have to be a black excellence or a black, it should be the expo. But because we, again, as Doc said, have our own issues with insecurity, we have to go over here and do it this way. Mm-hmm. We have to go over here and do it that way. And this is so the separatist mindset is actually perpetuated by a lot of folks when it comes to where they stand. Correct. So that becomes, again, added on mental issue.
I feel less than. A king will never have to say he's a king.
Correct.
Why would, if I'm a king and I know I'm ruling and I'm leading correctly, why would I ever have to say I'm a king? I hate this new kings, my queen, my king. Like, no, why do we have to keep doing this? If we truly believe we're that, we don't have to keep screaming it.
Correct.
And I think that's what I really see many times when I see the new trends that come out, the new conversations that we have. Why do I have to scream it? Your business should never want to just do business with black people.
Correct.
And you're pushing away white people by saying this is a black business. In case you're doing business with the government,
I shouldn't have to want to come to your business just because you got a black business.
Exactly.
I should want to come to your business because you got the best.
Well, you got the best whatever you serve. You serve
whatever
the
you're
best,
doing.
your service, your food, whatever it may be. You have the best at it. But we have to get to that mindset that we are enough. We don't need any adjectives.
Correct. But when I need you to align with my emotion as opposed to my application of production, that's where the guilt comes in. And that's where people end up fractioning relationships and opportunities because they put stipulations on them.
Right. I told her in the best eats, the food group.
Right.
every time I try to put black-owned business, I don't let it go through. And then finally someone asked me one day, why don't you let it go through?
Totally crazy.
Tony crazy.
And somebody said, why don't you let the hashtag black-owned business, why don't you let it go through? I said, because the day someone puts white-owned business,
Y'all have a fit.
y'all will burn the whole thing down.
Y'all lose your mind. Mm-hmm. Y'all lose your mind. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
So the mental state of the black male today needs to be improved. The state of the black male needs to actually be sought out for some understanding, and I want to say validation, some understanding. But I think everything that was shared tonight has everything to do with an effort to bring to light the need for people, especially men of color, to believe in themselves and have a better belief system about who they are and what they bring to the table.
Right.
If you're good, you don't have to tell anybody. That's just reality. And that's reality. Teresa says, I think people want to frequent black businesses to help them because they feel they are less frequented for business. And that may be true.
It may be true.
And that may be true. But you got to ask yourself, why is that the case? Because I know some businesses that are run by people of color that ain't got to worry about nobody ever coming in. Because Jenkins Barbecue be stacked and packed every day there's somewhere. I mean, it's just a matter of what you do. And building business and creating legacy and doing things the right way are where I think we have to get to. I think we have to have a spirit of excellence with everything we do. Not black excellence. Your hat says choose excellence. And I think that's what we're down to. It is a mindset and a way to apply things to your life.
If Publix or some of these businesses that we frequent, if they had a campaign out there, say, come support Publix because we are white-owned business, do you think we would stop or continue to keep going there?
I think we would burn the Publix down.
Look, they lose their mind off of that. They start going to Roses.
Come support Publix, so we're a white-owned business.
You'll burn the Publix down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Come down here to McDonald's. We right here on the corner of McDuff, and we are white-owned business. Come support us.
It's the mindset is so important, and the mental state of where we are today needs to be addressed and adjusted. And like Tony said, we need to have more imagery of. Well, I mean, I shared with somebody today. Do you realize that out of the top 5 wealthiest men in the world, 3 of them are of color? 3 of the top 5 wealthiest men in the world are of color.
No, they're Africans.
Yeah, there you go. We could name it. That's real. But they are
of color. They call.
But they are.
We call ourselves of color. Africans call themselves Africans.
Well, but again,
we can't say African.
Look, here's the deal: the technology that we hold in our hand every day that we can't live without of,
Africa,
designed by black folks.
Yeah.
And again, how many people know that? They don't, because you can't. The seduction of
the narrative
is way more. So I'm gonna throw you in a rap. I don't want you to know none of that stuff.
Right. The narrative. At that point, we lose the narrative. We can't ask for reparations when we know all of these people making money.
Facts.
Right.
But what am I having to do? What is the underlying message that I have to result into? What am I actually giving up? How could you go to church where everyone looks the same? Just my opinion. We created some. Well, we do that every Sunday.
Exactly.
We do that every Sunday.
Right. Well, we should be. And that's the thing. We should be going to a church where everyone looks different.
Correct.
I'm going to walk into, it's going to have some Chinese, some Japanese, some Korean, white, black, purple, green. And that's the church. If I'm going to church, that's the church that I mirror. I'm sorry. That's the church I'm going to.
Correct. That's where
I can't get no more.
All this is in utopic. That's a utopic world that we have. That's unfortunately not the world that we live in, and that's not the narrative that they want embraced. They like division,
but the longer
causes a problem, and
the longer we stay in that environment, the more those belief systems stick.
Exactly,
those ideas stick.
Exactly.
This has been another edition.
This is another edition. This show has been sponsored to you by Danielle Otoni and the Otoni Group.
Well, this has been another Monday edition of Men Unfiltered. We hope that you were able to sit back, embrace, and enjoy the conversation. The thoughts and comments on this program are ours. We don't ask you to agree with them or believe them. We don't ask you to line up with them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, our foundation is in faith, and it really is about our true belief system and the things of God. So ultimately, at the end of every conversation, that's where it's going to end up.
Right.
I've always been in mixed church, but how do y'all feel about a white pastor? No, that's
I don't mind. I don't care.
There's no problem with that. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. No, I don't have a problem with white pastor. I mean, it's just I've been in churches with both.
Right.
I've had both of them. I mean, I don't. Here's the deal. I don't put much into the pastor as I do to the assimilation in the congregation and be with the people of God. I'm not worship a pastor.
I want somebody that knows how to communicate. But I'm sorry. Yeah, at this point in my life, you will not see me with a pastor that's hooping, hollering, yelling, screaming. I'm sorry. It just won't happen. It won't. I don't see it in the Bible. I'm not learning anything with you doing a moonwalk. I just can't do it. I have no problem with it. I can't.
Thank the Lord.
I can't do it no more.
You said you went to a church and the pastor did the moonwalk?
Listen, you know, they'll do anything on stage. They introduce their wife for 25 minutes.
They will open cannabis shops.
Listen, I'm about to say, can we do that for the next show?
Bro, I can't do it. Let's talk about that. The state of the black church at this point. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Look, I was gonna do a podcast the cancel culture in the church.
Right, I can't do it, man. There's some nasty people in the church. Listen, worst experience I ever had in church was in a black church, little tiny joint out Chesapeake. I'd never go back to the church again. I never went back either. God dang on New Light Baptist. The woman say, "What you want to do on Sunday?" I said, "I'll do I do offerings." She's like, I was like, God dang, you just basically told me I was gonna steal, right? I ain't never want to go back to church ever again. Tony
said I'm there for the information at church.
That's it.
That's good stuff.
But I can't hear the information through those huffs and puffs. I can't hear it. I'm frustrated to the highest extent. When y'all start asking for somebody to bring money to the altar just because y'all speaking good, I can't do that. That ain't nowhere in the Bible.
Can I get one more?
Right. Let me do another offering, another tithe. Let me another offering, another tithe. I'm gonna do a prayer. Here go the $50 line. Here go the $100 line. Here go the $500 line. How about three of y'all get together and come up with 300? Let's
that'll be a good show. Does the church have an impact on the state of the black man? I mean, I think
absolutely. Absolutely. We hold true to that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That would be something that
I get next week now. Talk about that.
Yeah, we can do that. Carry it over.
Let's do that.
We carry it over this mountain. So we'll see you guys next Monday at 7:30 for another edition of Men Unfiltered. We appreciate y'all joining us. Share it with somebody. Look forward to seeing you next week. We're gonna carry this over and we're gonna take it into wherever it goes from there. So we'll talk to you then. See you.
Thanks.